Hi everyone, meteorologist Joe Chaffee on this Friday as we watch a major storm that's going to be developing for the Great Lakes. And I have to say I was skeptical given the fact that we haven't seen anything like this in such a long time, that when models were doing it and then not doing it and then doing it again, I kind of shied away from it, but I'm wrong here. This is going to be, a pretty strong storm that's going to run up through the Great Lakes. But, a couple of things are going on today. I know I've got some of you guys from up in the Michigan area that watch and are kind of really interested in this. And I have to say off the bat, I'm not familiar with the area. I don't quite know how the lake effect machine works. In fact, I asked my cat, who somehow knew I was doing this and came running to be on camera. He's a big ham. Anyway, I don't know the lake effect machine and how it works too well up there, so I don't want to say something that winds up sounding ridiculous or being wrong, but I'll just give you the basic meteorology of what's going on. And in the meantime, we're looking at weather in the east that is going to be very tranquil through Monday, and then we're going to get into some wind and rain. And I'm not sure just how much in terms of wind and rain we're actually going to get out of this, but we'll see. In the meantime, here's this lead low, which amazingly was one that models had down here back days and days and days ago. And you can see how it's translated, the fact that there's no southern stream shortwave here at all. So it's all this northern stream system. The models really messed that one up. And, that happens a lot. And, there's a cold front that's going to be coming through in the east on Super Bowl Sunday. In the meantime, you can already start to see out in the west, the northwest part of the United States, getting hit with snows and even substantial snows down through the mountains of California, and that starts to move eastward. So eventually we consolidate this into a low that comes out of Nebraska, Kansas. We've got snow through North Dakota, Montana, on up and back through Idaho and Wyoming, and then that slow translates eastward into Minnesota. Now, the low is in eastern Iowa, so that's going to really push the rain area, the rain snow line, pretty far to the north. In fact, into northernmost Michigan, the GFS at least is not really showing much in the way of precipitation running out ahead of it. You start to get into rain here across the Ohio Valley. There's some indication if precipitation were to come in fast enough in the northeast, it could start off as some snow or sleet, certainly some snow for New England. And then as we go into the afternoon, there's actually an extensive area of sleet and freezing rain in the Hudson Valley. And then you've got snow up as you go into New Hampshire, Vermont, and upstate New York. Back out here, we've got heavy snows in northwest Wisconsin, back through southeastern Minnesota, and getting ready to snow hard in the Upper Peninsula. I'm thinking that this track on the GFS, being that it's a little further north with the surface low, would probably mean mostly rain for Michigan, not the Upper Peninsula, but the lower. And it's all rain except for the extreme north in a narrow band, and then you got that heavy snow. Eventually, does go over to all snow. In the meantime, we have a warm front here that is getting ready to pass through in the east. And that's going to create a warm sector in here where eventually I think we could get into some heavy downpours and a few thunderstorms. Here's where all the cold air is wrapped around on the backside. You don't have any blocking in the atmosphere. And when you don't, that allows these storms to go up to the west and north up toward the Great Lakes. I suppose one can look at this and say, hey, we're finally seeing some kind of big storm development, which is a different signature from what we saw on the model, what we've been seeing all winter long, and even going back to last year after the blizzard. There were a couple of coastal storms, but we really didn't see too much in the way of weather systems like this. Once the low moves towards Toronto, you get into the colder air and there's snow on the backside. So I'm guessing that you're probably going to get some decent lake effect action here up through the Great Lakes, and of course through the northeast. It changes over to sleet and freezing rain up into New Hampshire and Maine on the lead side, and then you have the trailing cold front with some heavy band of heavy showers and maybe even a few thunderstorms. Wouldn't surprise me. And then the low runs up the St. Lawrence Valley. In comes a pretty decent shot of cold air behind it. We also have another system coming into the west, and you can see it here on Tuesday at the same time, and that starts to drop down into the Rockies. Now, one of the things that models were doing in the longer term behind this first storm was trying to make something out of this as it moved across the southern states and making perhaps for some snow later next week into the Carolinas. We're going now to Thursday, February 9th, so we're talking probably about next weekend. Who knows? And also the fact that the European really didn't show very much at all. The GFS has been a little more aggressive. It looks like it would be far enough offshore. It's that it's not an issue for the East Coast, but yeah, I'm really pretty skeptical about it. Overall, you can kind of sense my mood and my tone maybe that I'm just a little bit subdued with the whole weather pattern going forward. Maybe that's a good thing. Sometimes, as much as the models try to make things look bullish for wintertime weather, not that I root for it, but I'm a forecaster and I'm a weather guy, so I'm gonna like looking at these things. But you get through, you go through this, these rides up and down. It's there, it's not there, and it can be very frustrating and very humbling. Here's the upper air, and I'm actually, that's a pretty decent trough and short wave. You've got a ridge here in the east, and you've got ridging behind it. The pattern is pretty progressive, everything moving from west to east. The trough itself lifts up. I'm surprised looking at that 500 that it develops a low as intense as it does, because it doesn't, of all the upper airs that you look at with these storms, I would have expected to see something a little more impressive, and I'm not. So, but it is what it is. I mean, it may be a shade overdone. I don't know. And then it moves on to the east. Did you love my certitude today? It's like the attitude is really great. Now here's the problem behind it, in that you've got this northwest flow behind this storm, and it just basically overwhelms everything. You do have a short wave that's coming down here, but there's no room. Nice ridge built out in the west, but now you have too much of energy up in eastern Canada. When you want it there, you don't have enough. When you have it, you have too much, and you wind up suppressing everything to the south. So if there is something here in the southern stream, I would tend to think that it would go out more east than anything else. That's what the overnight model runs did. I'll show you that. We'll switch off and take a look. It'll go back a run. In fact, on this particular run last night, it was almost hard to find, but you can see where the southern part of this trough is. I mean, that's just that does nothing for the mid-Atlantic and northeastern part of the United States. And then after that, it's like, the air is just not that cold. You have a couple of short waves that try to come down. Does make it a little colder toward the end of the period, but the trough is the mean position is a little bit to the east. So it wouldn't take very much once that lifts out for warm air to just basically overwhelm the United States. And that's what last night's run did, the mid-cycle run. I should point that out because the prior run didn't really do that. But the European model long range kind of favors it. This is the long term. You take a look at this. This is back to flow of air across the Pacific, coldest air up in Canada. I mean, what are you going to do with that? It's just going to warm up as we go into the middle and latter part of February, if that's right. The run right before that had a totally different look. When I saw this last night before I went to bed, I thought, whoa, this is pretty interesting. This has, this was giving a very powerful blocking signature at the pole, and you've got this cold flow coming out of Canada, systems coming into the west, ridge in the west, and I thought, oh, okay, well, that's nice. And then, you pop out one run later, and instead of having a big blocking high, you have lows, upper lows, and polar vortexes running around all across the poles. I mean, can you understand the absolute frustration to go from one extreme where you have this huge blocking high, now you've got polar vortexes sitting up there. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. And the thing is, I guess forecasters say this with the expectation of thinking that, well, these models should be perfect at the 16 days, and obviously they're not, and they're going to keep changing as they always do. It's the frustration of dealing with that on a day-to-day basis. So all right, let me just real quick, before I show you, I'll show you what it generates. Let's see what it's going to generate for snow, but I want to just go back to this system behind the big storm for the Great Lakes, and you can see the GFS actually didn't make much of anything with the last run, and that's what the European is suggesting. The run before that had some snow moving into the southeastern part of the United States. You know what? Prove it to me. And let's once again, let me just see what we got. Yep, even on this run, it's just not there. So you know what? I'm convinced the European is going to be right, and that is not going to happen. Or if it does happen, it's not really of any consequence to us. By the way, don't you love how he just sits here? Too bad he's not a member of SAG-AFTRA. All right, let's look at the snow. How much are you guys up in Michigan going to get? All right, that's a good question to figure out and answer. So let's see what the GFS does with this. And we'll put up the total snowfall because that pretty much will work. What's falling over the weekend with the next weather system is pretty minor. And as we move, as you see on this, I mean, as the system is adjusting a little further north, your concentration of heavy snow is really across the upper peninsula of Michigan, back through the northern part of Wisconsin. You go through the rest of Michigan, and we're talking about amounts of a coating to a couple of inches down to Grand Rapids, Detroit, and so on. It really doesn't produce very much. Now, again, I don't have a full grasp of lake effect and how the model handles lake effect. It has its moments in upstate New York where it does pretty well, but you know, I follow that, so I pay attention to it. Other times it can be way off. So you know, I'm gonna guess with the extent of the deep low that's there that there should be a fair amount of lake effect that's not being reflected on this map. And by the way, as far as any kind of lead precipitation coming as some snow or ice, the GFS still has an area from northern New Jersey and Long Island northward up the Hudson Valley of a coating to an inch or so. Big deal. It all gets washed away anyway. So we'll just not even worry about that. We do know that there's no weather problems for this weekend, and no weather problems through Monday. How much wind we get is going to be a big question. Let's look real quick at that. Let me just move this down. By the way, a lot of good conversation in the last couple of days. I really enjoyed it on the engagement. So as we go into Wednesday, the model is, you know, showing sustained winds to gale force along the coast and along Long Island. I guess that would make sense. Might be some gusts into the 40s for coastal areas, and wouldn't be surprised with a low this strong. And you know, again, the possibility that it could be a thunderstorm or two when it goes by, and then after that, you've got the northwest wind that's going to last for a day or two, or even a little bit longer than that before the high builds in and everything relaxes. And there's the low that was supposed to be somewhere off the southeast coast. I guess it's just here east of the Bahamas. If things get any worse, why don't we just send an Air Force plane in it to see if it's got tropical characteristics? Just kidding. All right. So everybody have a great day. If you've stayed this long, I'm guessing you like my YouTube video. So please hit the subscribe button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's absolutely free. I'm really welcome you here. Video comes up at least once a day. And when it does, you'll get a notification in your email that Joe Chaffee has a new video, and you need to drop everything you're doing to run and see it. And my app, my weather forecast app for New York, New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut, and Hudson Valley. You can download that. The link will come up on the card if you'd like, and the subscription's just $1 a month. And it's very zone specific. I do it. It's by hand. It's my forecast, my thoughts. I write it at least twice a day. There's no icons. You know, it's not computer generated icons that go out 45 days. Okay, like some apps I know. So everybody have a great rest of your Friday, a great weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl. I honestly don't care who wins, and we'll update you on this tomorrow.